So I often get asked, what do universities look for in an application? What should we make sure that we do, that we present to universities? And the first thing the students can do is that they can take the time to really fill the application out properly. That they really, they fill it out and they look over, and maybe even have someone else look over it. When it comes to the essays, that they really take the time to write and rewrite, and let somebody else look at it and read it. Students can submit the essays to me, and I can give them feedback about how to change the essay in a way that gets across the message that they want to get across better. They do want proper spelling, good grammar. They want students in the American system. They want to know what students have done in their free time. They really want to get to know the students on a deeper level, whereas systems like the UK and similar systems really want to know if that student really is a good fit for the course that they want to study. Systems like the UK and Australia really want to see high IB scores. The higher the IB scores, the better overall. And then they want certain areas depending on your course. So for Canadian schools are primarily want to see good IB scores, that students finish the IB program strong. And so really for Canada, the UK, for most systems around the world, they really they're really focused on academics, and that you do well in that students do well in IB, and that the application that they fill out, if they want an essay, that the essay is very strong. There's a couple other things that they might be looking for. So international students should take the TOEFL. I would say most students should take the TOEFL if they're looking at the United States. The big reason is scholarship money. Students from ISY shouldn't have to take the TOEFL to show that they know English, and there's lots of exceptions. There's lots of English proficiency exceptions. So for some schools, they'll say if you're in an English-speaking medium school, you don't need to take the TOEFL. We know that you can speak English, read and write, speak English. But I usually recommend that students take it anyway. If it's high, you could possibly get some more scholarship money for it. And so TOEFL can play a big role. If a student's grades are not as good, or their SAT scores aren't as good, then TOEFL maybe becomes even more powerful in there. And so in the UK, it's the IELTS that they want to see. And so a good IELTS score, it's not going to help get you in or not, but they want a good IELTS score just to double check that you do have the English proficiency. Most of the other systems say as long as you have IB, you don't need to take TOEFL. So let's get a little nitty gritty. In the US, the top criteria the students are looking at are grades overall, right? So in the United States, the number one and number two things they look for is grades across all classes, and then grades specifically in IB. And they do look at the type of IB classes that students are taking. So they do know that they feel like there is a difference between someone who takes their higher levels, like in science and math, as opposed to higher levels in humanities. It's a different type of kid that takes that, and they have an understanding of the strengths of those students just by knowing that. SAT scores are at the top, and then they look at the overall GPA, so that number that gives an indication of where students are. And they don't interpret the GPA alone, so they take a look at our student profile that shows a breakdown of GPAs of students from the present class and past classes. So they get a sense for the student's GPA in comparison with their cohort. Are they in the upper part of the class, lower part of the class? Just because a student has a 5.2 GPA doesn't mean it's bad or good compared to their class or compared to last year's at ISY. And same thing with the test scores. We show on our school profile our average test at SAT scores. So they want to know SAT scores in comparison with a person's class, just to get a sense for, what kind of students does our school produce every year, and then how does this person fit in within the context of their school. And then something that's also come out that schools put more weight on essay than with domestic students. So there's a couple of things. It's an indication of English, but they also want to get to know someone from a different culture. What is that student going to bring to the university with that different point of view? So that the data is showing that comes out. Okay, let's talk about the select universities. Many students from ISY look at universities accept less than 30% across many systems. And so specifically in the US, more selective institutions also want to know predicted scores, and a few want SAT subject tests. SAT subject tests will be wanted for mainly engineering students that are applying to really, really difficult to get into schools. There's some schools that accept less than 15 to 10%, and they may want subject tests. And then many of them want to know predicted scores. Most universities in the United States, you don't have to submit predicted scores. And most don't even necessarily need them. If we send them, then they'll consider them. But once you get below about 30% acceptance rate, many of the schools want them. And then more selective students attribute more influence to student contextual factors. In other words, things that are going on in the students, what comes out in the student's life, the school that they're coming from, where does the student fit into that school academically? They may include your passport, your gender, whether you're the first person to go to university in your family. And then if there's any alumni relations, if you've had any brother or sisters, mother, father, that have gone to that university. So those come into the picture in terms of your chances of getting into the university as well. And then they're looking for this, and I've taken this list from various places, but every time that I sit and listen to, especially universities that accept a low percentage of students, this is what they always point to. This is what they say is kind of the difference in the students that they eventually accept. And it comes out of their application, and it comes from various places. It could come from their essay. It could come from recommendation letters. It can come from, the things that they've listed that they've done. It could come from a lot of places. Special talent, that's that hook. So that's, were they engaged in music for 4 years, and did they, how outstanding are they, and did they do competitions and stuff like that? So all these things they're looking for. You don't have to be, this isn't a checklist where you have to say, I have that, or I have to work on that. But, as students are making out their application, thinking about how do they show some of this stuff, right? How do they show persistence? How do they communicate overcoming any hardships? Some students don't. That's okay, right? How do they show intellectual curiosity, resourcefulness? If they do have a special talent, even if they're not, I have many students that are really good in art. The art teacher may say they're like the top 1 or 2 art students in their class. They don't want to major in art. That's okay. They should still let the university know that they have a passion for art, that they're in art, that they do stuff on their own, because that shows what the student's involved in, and a passion that they have, and that could actually make them stand out, even though they're not majoring in it. So all that stuff is what they're looking for. There's not one specific thing that you can do about all this. It's as it comes out of your application, and as you're filling it out, these are things that they are looking for. And so keeping it in mind, I think, is a good thing as students fill out their application.